I need to pay the bills, and for a bunch of gaming peripherals to clog up my house with. Murder. The Nintendo Wii brought a whole new group of people into gaming, that being everyone who needed to talk on the birds, bees, and bee button locations. The presentation of the menus as well as Wii Sports and the other Wii series games, it was the gateway into helping the masses further understand gaming culture, at least a little bit. But hardcore games still were celebrated like they always were, with stuff like The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess being a launch title, Virtual Console and GameCube compatibility allowing for titles from pretty much every previous Nintendo home console and then some to all be enjoyed in one box. The Wii Remote's functions actually benefiting core experiences in some cases, such as with Sin and Punishment, where pointer aiming was so good compared to dual analog gaming, or rather the N64's D-pad analog stick hybrid control style, that the developers actually had to up the game's general difficulty for Star's successor on the Wii. The Wii truly united the casual and hardcore. I fucking love Platinum games. Enter No More Heroes, released in December 2007 to March 2008, developed by Grasshopper Manufacture and published by Marvelous Entertainment, Ubisoft, and Rising Star Games. Creator and director Goichi Suda, nicknamed Suda51, saw showcases of the Wii Remote's functions and decided to shift his focus of his concept Project Heroes over to being primarily a Wii title, after designer Yasuhiro Wada suggested the idea of doing so, and as we'll see, they adapted the game for the Wii's tech in just the right way that the game was praised by critics hands down. Despite this though, the game saw pretty low sales in Japan. The launch event was described as no one buying the game for the first 20 minutes until a Famitsu magazine reporter stepped up to the plate to purchase their signed copy. Thankfully, the game surprisingly had very solid sales in the US and Europe, and after doing a full playthrough myself, I am so glad this game got the recognition it deserved in at least some way. The game would later be released on the Switch in 2020, Amazon Luna and PC in 2021, and the Xbox 360 and PS3 in 2010 in the form of an enhanced port subtitled Heroes Paradise. Now, just as a preface as I start to show the game off, the game has a lot of adult themes, and I want to make it clear that my videos are meant for an older teen and upwards demographic. I mean, I don't want to be liable if someone's dad walks in and sees a furry bitch talking about a game with a shit ton of Chex jokes. Like Chex Quest. Starting the game up, we can initially choose to start a new playthrough with either the easy or medium difficulties, named Sweet and Mild respectively, with the hard difficulty Bitter being unlocked for cleared save files. Now, I did my initial playthrough on Sweet, so hopefully doing one on Mild from scratch actually counts to my vote in the next election. This is Travis Touchdown, who explains his situation of how he took a job to fight against an assassin named the Drifter. After he kills him off, he's met by a lady he bought a drink for at the bar, Sylvia Crystal, exclaiming that he's certified as the 11th ranked hitman in the United Assassins Association, and so Travis decides to continue his climb. Something I forgot about during this opening cinematic was how in the last section where Travis encourages the player to follow him on his journey, he mentions pressing the A button on the Wiimote.
What do you say, bro? Join me. Let's see how far we can take this. And for you there holding the Wii remote right now, just press the A button. Let the bloodshed begin!
I'd assume the line would be muted out for the ports, but no, they actually re-recorded it to mention the player holding the controller instead of specifically the Wiimote. Another thing about the ports, specifically Heroes Paradise, is how the game handles gore. The Japanese regional version uses some kind of black noise rather than the extreme gore in the international releases, which is retained in the Japanese PS3 version of Heroes Paradise, though the Japanese 360 version had the blood, which resulted in specifically that version getting a 0Z, equivalent to the ESRB's adults only rating. As for the PS3, there were two revisions of Heroes Paradise on that, Revision 1 being Japan exclusive, and Revision 2 being being released in the West and back into Japan as Red Zone Edition, which added performance upgrades, PS Move support, and it was uncensored, which also gave it a 0Z. Got all that? Cool, let's talk about the actual gameplay. No More Heroes is controlled using the Wii Remote with the nunchuck and is centered around swordplay using the beam katana, a weapon that uses a large laser to slice at objects, very comparable to a Star Wars lightsaber. Now, you'd think that this type of weapon would be illegal for public use, considering that other enemies having their own beam katanas implies that these are mass-produced for government agents and such, but the one Travis uses, nicknamed the Bloodberry, he just got it from an online auction. My guess is that the service he used doesn't give two left pisses about shipping regulations. You attack using the A button, and you can raise or lower the Wiimote to shift between high and low stances to throw out light and heavy attacks respectively, as well as get around enemies guarding in a specific position by attacking with the opposite stance. This puts the combat leagues above a lot of other Wii games centered around swordplay already, as you're not maniacally waggling the Wii Remote around to attack. Though that's not to say motion controls are left out as a whole, as when you get an enemy to 0 HP, the way you finish them off is by swinging the Wii Remote in the prompted direction, which I am all for, as it gives an actual feeling of weight behind motion controls in a good way, since you're not waggling so much that it just loses the feeling of actually swinging a sword. And after dealing a death blow, you have the chance to get one of a few temporary forms, all referred to as Dark Side mode. These give you strong abilities such as slowing down enemy time, getting a charge for a screen nuke that you can use by pressing the minus button, and my personal favorite in terms of flashiness, being able to one-shot enemies by pressing the right button prompted to you. Even if you hit the wrong one, Travis does a taunt animation, which does waste the limited time you're given to be in Darkside, but it's so fucking cool that it doesn't matter, at least not for me. Now, when you do need to waggle is when you are clashing with an enemy, or when you're recharging the battery of the beam katana, in which Travis recharges through a questionable motion. As for other moves in combat, when you're locking onto an enemy, you can automatically block later attacks toward you, such as weapon swings or small bullets, which you may think makes combat extremely easy, but you still need to make sure you're not attacking so you can block. You also need to make sure that the previously mentioned weapon battery isn't fully depleted, which goes down as you block an attack, as it'll prevent you from further blocking or dealing damage. You can also do a dodge roll, and after blocking a hit, you can sidestep to unleash a flurry of attacks. One other thing you can do is perform a beat attack with the B button, which I found doesn't do much, but the B button also lets you grapple stunned opponents to perform wrestling moves onto them, which is especially useful for bosses since it does a large chunk of damage. Heading into the room before the boss fight, Travis receives a call from Sylvia with unique dialogue, though each call does build off of its own running jokes. What's super cool is that if you have the Wiimote speaker setting on in the game options, the call's audio will play out of exclusively the Wiimote speaker, encouraging you to hold the Wiimote up to your ear like an actual phone.
Unleash the power! Show no mercy! Bring me death methods! Enter when you are prepared to fight.
I absolutely love this inclusion, as I feel it makes for such a great experience on specifically the Wii's controller. Now, the drawback to this is that you can't skip the call. Travis is that much of a simp that he wants to listen to the entirety of Sylvia's long-ass speeches every time, and Travis walks extremely slowly. I mean, it's not as bad as with Metal Gear Rising, as that game has moments where you receive codec calls as you approach areas that require movement not accessible during a call, albeit you can mash through the dialogue, but it still causes the flow of No More Heroes' levels to screech to a halt. All in all though, I am amazed at how No More Heroes perfectly balances the more gimmicky Wiimote functions with the player convenience to properly justify the game being made for the Wii while still feeling beautiful to control. After the call, each pre-boss area has chests containing health and battery refills and a save point. Now, the neat thing about that last inclusion is that the save points in the game are contextualized as restrooms, each of them having unique appearances that involve the title No More Heroes being written there, usually in the form of text on a poster. This makes it so when the game automatically continues off of your most recent save file you saved to the next time you boot it up, you're treated to one of a whole bunch of fully unique title screens. Onto the first boss, Death Metal, and being the boss of the opening stage, he is of course easy as all hell. The things I'd watch for are your battery, as well as these clones that he spawns. They can be pretty overwhelming if you don't expect them. Damaging bosses, at least for me, are usually centered around the process of walking up to the enemy, waiting for them to pull off their normal attack string, sidestep into Mach, rinse and repeat. Travis kills Death Metal, and like with the Drifter, Sylvia shows up to announce Travis's new rank, also explaining that he might as well aim for top 1 since he'll be a target for the next lower-ranked assassins either way. We also see Travis's personality fully show how much of a fucking loser he is, as he gets the idea of asking for Sylvia to get in bed with him if he gets to rank 1. Sylvia teases around with the offer, and that becomes a more silly motivation for Travis. And so, we cut back to Travis's living space. After a boss, there's a reoccurring gag where Travis checks his voicemail for Beefhead, the rental video shop, usually notifying him on being passed due on the return date for an adult video, which is strange. The motel he lives in is on the same block as the store. Actually, I'd kill to live on the same block as a used media store. I fucking want a living spot like that. And that cool-ass motorcycle named the Schlepp Tiger that Travis drives around? You actually utilize it to move around the open world. You can steer with the nunchuck stick, but you can also roll the Wii remote in the respective direction to make sharp turns, which I love. Now, each ranked fight has an increasing fee to enter, and the method of earning money in between fights are through side jobs and assassination gigs. Side jobs usually give some amount of money, and you just do mundane things within a time limit, such as shaking down trees and bringing coconuts dropped from them to a single spot, or picking up litter on the streets. These are all pretty neat minigames, and since they unlock a batch of assassination missions for each time you first complete a side job, you'll only need to try a side job once, and if you don't like it, then you've at least unlocked its respective set of assassin gigs for your combat fix. Such as this first one, this chain restaurant pizza bot wants to open up and stand and destroy, which is apparently a bad thing, so what we need to do is kill their CEO. Well then, it's time to kick some Italian food ass. Well, that was quick. I really like this flexibility in the side job and assassin gig system. I think it's a very important game design element, and I'm glad it's done so well here. Once we pay the fee using the money gained from jobs and the previous fight, we can drive over to the location of our next ranked fight, in this case Destroy Stadium, to fight the assassin at rank 9, Dr. Peace. 2 times within the waves of enemies you'll be fighting through, you'll come across a section where you bat a ball back to a line of pitchers. And the more you knock down, the less you'll have to fight after 3 attempts. So you swing the Wiimote for this as you'd expect, but what I didn't understand initially is that you have to raise the Wii remote to prepare to swing beforehand. Stepping into the baseball field, you're met with Dr. Peace, this country-looking dude who's absolutely singing his heart out to the non-existent crowd as Travis walks in. He describes a recent experience where he goes to a restaurant with his family that had good atmosphere yet shitty food, which you'd think would make for a boring pre-boss cutscene, but I think it's made witty in a good way, enough to be good banner as the camera pans between Travis and Peace as they interact. The boss is decent. You try to close in on Peace as he fires at you, so you either have to frantically dodge roll or burn some battery blocking the bullets. Once you're actually in range though, he's pretty easy to deal with. After this, we unlock access to some more shops, Area 51's clothing store, which of course means you can purchase extra customization options there. Naomi's lab is where you can purchase the game's free additional weapons, all under the Tsubaki line, as well as smaller upgrades for each of them, and a Thunder Ryu gym, in which you do small minigames to increase your attack string, damage, and health. Also get a health increase after most boss fights, parts, but with how easy these minigames are, you might as well pay the few extra funds to upgrade. The first two shops I described used the licensed song Heavenly Star by Genki Rockets as their themes, and they appear in a few cutscenes as well. The song is an absolute banger, I really recommend listening to it. Unfortunately, the modern ports instead use the Schlepp Tiger driving theme in the shops, and I assume this extends to the cutscenes that used Heavenly Star as well. Rank 8 Shinobu. This pre-boss level uses the gimmicks of enemies being able to set Travis on fire, dealing damage over time until you get to an extinguisher, and one section where attacks are disabled due to the water sprinklers, so it's a mad dash over to the circuit breaker to turn them off. The fight against Shinobu herself is when the game stops fucking around. She'll dodge almost all of your strikes that aren't counters to her own, and she has 2 additional attacks late into the fight that'll absolutely erase your HP from existence. I ended up dying 3 times here, though I do find it a bit bullshit that even if you get a sidestep in, I assume the iframes from when she dodges still go off, so your combo just phases through her a lot of the time. Maybe I'm just doing something wrong though. Travis actually spares her this time, considering killing her once she's grown and have gotten stronger, which, my brother in Christ, she's one of the toughest bosses in the game and definitely the most difficult so far. After Shinobu, we get access to Beefhead videos and the Gold Town Bar, which are simply places to get more combat techniques. I want to make sure I have the Tsubaki Mark 1 for the levels up ahead, so let's grind out some more money. After mowing the lawn, I head over to see what assassination gigs are available. This chain restaurant Pizza Butt wants to open up and Send and Destroy, which is apparently a bad thing, so what we need to do is kill their CEO. Once more, it's time to kick some Italian food ass. Well, that was quicker. Rank 7, Destroy Man. The game certainly starts to feel like it picks up the pace from this point onwards, the pre-boss level having no gimmick sections. I find Destroy Man hilarious as well. The line delivery from his voice actor Josh Keaton is perfect. It kinda reminds me of the Yakutin episode The Wisdom Cube. The fight is on par with Death Metal and Dr. Peace in terms of difficulty. His attacks are very punishable if he misses, but they still keep you on your toes. Also, I found at this point that it's a good time to do a beat attack into wrestle and grapple when they try guarding. His fight theme even makes the sound effect set on a Yamaha keyboard sound good. Overall, a pretty fun ranked fight. Rank 6, Holly Summers. This one's focused around being annoying as all hell. So you're basically fighting a larger amount of waves of enemies for each section of the level, and it feels like way more of a drag compared to the previous ones. You have this enemy type who fires off a bunch of bullets in one set, so you get stun-locked for quite a bit, either blocking or taking the hits, and that's not even the worst of this. In the fight against Holly herself, she keeps using this missile attack that comes at you from off-screen, so unless you time a single dodge roll perfectly, you'll waste time when closing in on her. And once you do, she'll eventually run off, moving faster than you, so you'll have to go through the entire rigmarole of closing the distance all over again, all while dealing with pitfalls that aren't too difficult to climb out of before you take extra damage, but it's still irritating as all hell. This certainly isn't the most difficult fight, with only 1 death when I went through it, but that only further illustrates how this was the most tedious one in the game. So in conclusion, Holly can suck my Tsubaki and bite on a grenade. Oh shit. For context on the scene, Holly tries to make it clear to Travis after the fight that he shouldn't hesitate to kill other assassins that have lost, regardless of if they're a woman, in which Travis grieves over Holly's death, lamenting how he didn't intend to shame her by hesitating to kill, which I kind of find that line oddly touching. I mean, Travis is definitely written to be a pretty static character, having little to no character development, but I do like this moment where he shares his grief over not realizing beforehand that his attempts of being a charming could come off as merely being patronizing. After sweeping some minds, I checked the assassination gigs. This chain restaurant Pizza Butt wants to open up and Stand and Destroy, which is apparently a bad thing, so what we need to do is kill their CEO. One last time, it's time to kick some Italian food out. Damn it. Okay, I get some training in and then I finish it, so that was moderately paced. Rank 5, let's shit. Can you at least let me finish? So yeah, there's actually no boss fight for this one. Just a corridor of enemies with this guy staying just a bit ahead of Travis as he goes through. Now, who is this man? Well, he's got the neon white look, except he didn't feel like doing makeup or hair dye. This is Henry Cooldown, who, as we saw, easily sliced through Let's Shake and his giant-ass contraption, right as said contraption was finishing its comically long charge-up sequence, no less. And then Henry just pisses off, but at least it still counts as a win for Travis. We now unlock the Tsubaki Mark II, which has a whole 4 lasers and 1 beam katana, which as you'd expect ups the power by quite a bit, but also the battery use. Rank 4, Harvey Moisewicz Volodarski. Damn, that's a complex name. We fight through some more enemies in the station and hop on the train, in which Travis falls asleep on. What the hell could this be about? What the hell could this be about? Okay, so we just suddenly have a vertical shmup minigame. That's interesting. I like the pre-boss cutscene for this one for how goofy it is. Especially the line delivery of, My parents are dead. Harvey has this gimmick of flipping the camera, but it doesn't really do much since you automatically relock onto him when he teleports in a different spot on the arena. His other attacks are pretty average. He's definitely the easiest boss in the game, but at least his character artwork goes hard. Rank 3, Speedbuster. Interestingly, the majority of the level, taking place on a bus, has a pseudo 2D style. The name Speedbuster does go pretty hard though. I wonder what this boss's design is like. Oh, that's just an old woman. I didn't expect that. Now, Sylvia describes her as a witch, so what kind of spells does Travis need to watch out for? Maybe shifting to whoever to rain, thunder, extreme heat, or maybe summoning enemies by reanimating corpses beneath the ground. Big fucking laser. Yeah, so you ever played Be Crushed by a Speeding Wall? Yeah, the quote-unquote fight against Speedbuster is just that, except it's adapted into No More Heroes. Now, Thunderryu tried to fight her, but died to, well, big fucking laser. Despite this, his spirit lives on to run the gym. Rank 2, Bad Girl. This level's back in Destroy Stadium, and the thing with this one is that you drive the Schlepp Tiger over hordes of enemies, which honestly gets real tiring fast. Bad Girl is a pretty tough fight. On my initial playthrough, I thought of her having the challenge of Shinobu, but now I just find her as annoying as Holly. She has some pretty decent moves as the penultimate boss, 3 attack strings, an average insta-kill, a half health power increase that throws an area of effect attack into the mix. All of these are fine, but one of her moves involves spanning some guys in BDSM suits, which according to the No More Heroes wiki are condemned criminals. Imagine that, feeding into your kinks on death row. She flings 2 to 3 of them at Travis, which become extra enemies for you to take out. It would be fine if she did it from time to time, but the frequency is way too high. You usually end up in the situation of killing the enemies, running over to Bad Girl to try to get some hits in, she runs over to fling more at you, and the cycle repeats. Other than that, she is a pretty moderate boss, providing a pretty good challenge at this point. Naomi uses Thunderryu's sword as reference to create the Tsubaki Mark III, rounding out the additional weapons. After paying the last entry fee, it's revealed that Sylvia just made up the whole UAA, being a massive con artist, so there are a lot of poor suckers that were duped into her shit show. Rank 1, Dark Star. The first half of the level here is a driving section, which I just find kinda tedious, but after some standard fights in the second half, you get to the final boss himself. Okay, so the final boss is actually this girl Jean, who weirdly has no relation to Travis's cat, also named Jean. She turns out to be Travis's sister, and she killed their parents due to some pretty crazy stuff. How crazy? Well, apparently so much that she throws in a meta joke this late into the game.
It's too terrible. It alone would jack up the age rating of this game even further.
So what? Who cares?
What if the game gets delayed? You don't want this to become No More Heroes forever, do you?
Jean is a decent final boss, putting the entirety of your moveset to a full definitive test. She's actually comparable to Bad Girl, having an attack string ending in an unblockable hit, an AoE move thrown in later. It's a much better fight, however, due to none of Jean's attacks breaking the flow. Only problem is, like Shinobu, she automatically dodges non-counter hits, so I have the same issue of often not getting hits in when sidestepping. Damaging her is a lot more work, since she counters any attempts at grappling if you stun her. I also forgot to mention this earlier, but doing a charged attack by holding A really comes in handy for when she attempts her unblockable hit ending her normal string. Simply keep your distance and release after she attacks. One final clash, this time scripted to have Travis automatically lose, and would you look at that, Shinobu comes in to save Travis's ass. And thus, Travis's journey reaches its closure. But there still is the true ending, unlocked by purchasing every additional beam katana. Which, this is likely a pretty hot take of mine, but I much prefer this kind of criteria over the standard of having to keep track of every little detail in the plot, as there will be an exam on it, as unforgiving as finals in actual school. Both endings open on Travis getting ambushed by a lower assassin, but we're at the point in the fake ending cuts to the credits. The real ending continues to show the assassin getting killed by, oh okay, he just pissed off to the ending. Henry is the final boss of No More Heroes, and yeah, he's certainly much more of a challenge as a super boss should be, but thankfully not too much, just enough that you can't slack for a moment as you execute a full strategy well for the entirety of the fight. Henry will pull his normal attack string, but he also likes to pull off an unblockable lunge attack instead when he gets near, so you'll need some pretty good foresight, as this was the move I struggled with the most. Avoiding his insta-kill, which I must say looks really fucking cool, also requires a well-timed dodge roll. I usually pull one in the point of his animation where his offhand grips his sword right before flying forth. He also has a shit ton of health, albeit he won't counter grapples, so you need to know specifically what to do to defend from each of his attacks. I died once and beat him on a sliver of health, so he's definitely not to be fucked around with. In one last cutscene, we get an explanation that Henry is actually Travis's brother, and Sylvia is actually Henry's wife. I honestly don't blame Travis for being so bewildered upon learning that.
Why would you bring up something like that at the very last minute of the game?
And apparently we get more late meta jokes. The credits roll over a painting of the two clashing once more, zooming out to a child admiring the painting alongside Sylvia.
You like this painting, don't you? Let's go, Jean.
Wait, you're telling me that there are 3 characters in this game named Jean, 2 of which are introduced in the game's conclusion, all with seemingly no connection outside of naming and being related to a member of Travis's family in some way. And that is No More Heroes. It is certainly an amazing experience, especially for its time. The gameplay loop is done in a great way that makes the repetition feel more like a good method to not burn the player out from combat. Though said combat is an absolute blast, irritating sections of the overall gameplay are few and far between. Though I do wish it would be possible to quickly repeat a job you just did. That would help make the process of paying for entry fees and other things not overstay its welcome. The controls are the perfect blend of gimmicks and convenience to make the user experience truly amazing, with both working together as one. Never have I seen character writing like Travis. I've seen characters with their arc being centered around initially being jackasses, but eventually opening up to others. But Travis's likable and unlikable traits surprisingly managed to coexist pretty well, neither side being too much over the other to the point where it would otherwise bog down his overall writing. And speaking of, the game's writing is phenomenal. Each assassin has a vibrant personality that sets them apart from the others, clearly shown through their outstanding acting. This all comes back to like how the game balances everything about itself so well. It contributed to being the Wii's core gaming yang to its casual gaming yin. And No More Heroes deserves to be celebrated as the magnum opus of the Wii's technologies and identity. Well, I got an extra Wii from a yard sale, so I won't need to kill anyone. For now.